Welcome back everyone. In this video we'll be replacing the brakes on the Apollo Air. The tools you'll need for this video are a battery drill, a 4mm bit, a 19mm wrench, a 5 and a 4mm Allen key, some flush cutters, and some long nose pliers. You want to take a 19mm wrench to remove the 2 rear lug nuts. You're going to go here, make sure to hold in the middle to not flip the scooter forward when you're untightening the lug nut. What should come out is the lug nut and the lock ring. Same thing for the other side. Make sure you hold the tire firmly when you're doing the second lug nut, as the tire tends to drop because the fork is made to go down and not sideways like other models. When we remove the tire, just gently pull down with your 2 hands as to not damage the rotor. Make sure to also remove both washers on both sides. What you want to do now is fold the stem up as to have more workspace. We're now going to take a 4mm hex key or Allen key to remove the 6 screws from the brake disc. Make sure to apply even pressure to not strip these screws, as they are pretty delicate. Only an initial turn will do. You can then take a little electric drill here. This one is a 7.2 volt and a 4mm drill bit. Now that we've got the 6 screws removed, we just remove the disc here. So now let's get our new brake disc. You want to match this arrow with the arrow on your rim. So right here, match it here, then we can start locking the screws in. Like usual, you take your drill with the 4mm bit and gently start to screw it in. Don't go all the way, as you want to have a little bit of leeway when putting the other screws. We're going to do a star pattern. Now we're going to gently finish off the screws. Then take your hex bit to really tighten them. Make sure this doesn't take off while riding. Once again, before putting the wheel back into the forks, you want to lift the clamp, lower the stem to make sure we have the most weight in the middle of the scooter and not at the front. First things first, you're going to take your inside washers, these 2 here, put them on each side, align them with your shaft. It doesn't matter which way they go as long as they're inside the forks. When slipping the wheel back into the forks, you want to make sure your shaft is aligned at both sides, and you want to make sure to align the rotor also as to not bend it, and you want to have obviously your washers on the inside and not the outside. So we're going to push it up now. It should be locked in place. You then take your 2 lock rings, put them on either side, like so. Take your lug nuts, screw them in. You can get them finger tight at first. Take your 19mm wrench and, while holding the middle, tighten gently on both sides. And then final touch. The scooter is going to move, so make sure you have your hand on the scooter. You can actually push down on the forks while you're tightening, so the scooter doesn't move up. To remove the brake pads, we first need to relieve the tension on the brake cable. Just like this. We can then remove the 2 top screws right here. There we go. We can now pull off the caliper and have access to our brake pads. We can now take our long nose pliers to remove the brake pads just like this, and then the second one just like that. Now to install the brake pads, we simply need to slide them into their spot and the magnet should do the rest. That's one and two. We can now reinstall the caliper on the brake disc and the forks. We can then screw our 2 screws back in. We don't want them too tight as we'll have to adjust the positioning of the caliper. And to adjust the positioning of the caliper, we want to make sure the inside brake pad is closer to the disc than the outside one. Let's test this out to make sure we have no rubbing. As we can see, we have a little bit of rubbing, so we'll adjust them again. And as we can see, we have no rubbing, so we can now adjust the caliper lever. Now we want to lift the caliper lever until we have some rubbing on the brake pads, as we can hear right now, so we can tense up the brake line and tighten the screw on top. And as we can see, the wheel turns very smoothly with no rubbing, and when we press the brakes, we have a very tight brake. And there you go. That's how you change the brakes on the Apollo Air.